Hi, folks. Thank you for joining. I appreciate it. Please feel free to ask me any questions you want in the chat. I'm going to wait to see if a few more people get in here. Anybody who's watching right now, do you live in DC? Where do you live? Y'all, I got to get my hair done. All this hair. I got to get my hair done. Woo! I am so happy my appointment is coming up. It's a struggle. Maryland. Thanks, Jamal. So we are right next door to each other because I'm in Southeast. So I just drive right to Maryland and do most of my things. Go to the store, whatever. All of my group chats are blowing up. This is crazy. Like all my group chats. Mm. My Harvard DMV group chat is blowing up. So I wrote a Substack the other day with just plain numbers from DC district data that paints a true picture of violent crime here in Washington, DC, which is historically down by 26%. I need everyone to understand how significant that is. In fact, crime is down across all categories, but specifically with violent crime, 26%, y'all. That's the truth. Those are the facts, not whatever horrific lie the President of the United States is dangerously telling the world. It is simply untrue. Now, have there been situations with teenagers like in Navy Yard? My office is in Navy Yard, with them being a little unruly during the summer? Yeah, that happened. hmm Do Howard students love to be on U Street, blowing off a little steam? Historically, that has always happened. There's nothing new about that. And as Howard students are returning to campus, I am very worried about them. I'm worried about all the students here in DC, but specifically Howard students, because from my understanding, there were law enforcement on U Street last night, and that is historically what Howard students are. So this is just further evidence, in my opinion, that the president has it out for Black folks. The teenagers that were kind of causing some ruckus in Navy Yard over the summer, they were mostly all Black teenagers. I've seen them. Like when I leave my office sometimes late at night, I see them. They're outside. They're restless. We were all teenagers. But violent crime? That's a lie. It is a blatant lie for Trump to roll out his martial law plan. And DC is the most vulnerable because there is no representation. However, legally speaking, he just cannot unilaterally militarize, or let me not say militarize, federalize DC. In all of these moves, many of these moves that he's making, he has completely sidestepped Congress. But I mean, what's even the point? Because they're going to vote his way anyway. And the fact that electeds are gone, they're in their home states, their home cities, their districts. I don't see that as a coincidence. A lot of people are saying this is a larger distraction for Epstein, possibly. But in my opinion, this is strategic. And many areas, and this is painful for me to say as a strategist, Dems have been out strategized, outmaneuvered. What Speaker Johnson did, telling everybody to go home for a month because he didn't want to have to, deal with his job, was that a whim or was that strategy? Because here we are. The electeds aren't here. For Cory Booker and for Hakeem Jeffries to hold a sit-in on the steps, to lead some sort of protest or campaign, they have to come back from their hometowns, from their districts to do so because they're not here. So again, is this a distraction? Was releasing Congress for a month a whim, or is this strategy? Now, I firmly believe that this will be challenged in the courts. Of course it will. And because there is no legal justification for it, it'll probably get whatever national security law or policy he's weaponizing and using for this will probably get tossed out. But will he listen? Everyone has to accept that Donald Trump is an authoritarian. He's a dictator. He doesn't care about what Congress says. He doesn't care about what the courts say. So how will the country respond? I was texting with a friend earlier today whose daughter is a Howard student. And they were saying to me that they feel uncomfortable with their daughter being here in DC. I get it. I feel uncomfortable being here. The reality is, the reason why I feel unsafe is not because of the teenagers at Navy Yard or Howard students partying on U Street. It's the president. I feel unsafe because of the president of the United States, where he can deploy federal officers and agents in a city that has documented historically low violent crime statistical rates. Do you understand that? He fabricated a reason, and they're here. There was nothing preventing the federal officers and agents from being here. They are here for a reason that does not exist. His own expansion of presidential powers, the way he completely ignores and sidesteps Congress, again, which they're going to back him anyway because, Republicans have majority in the House and in the Senate, and completely ignoring lower courts. How complicit will the Supreme Court be in democracy falling off a cliff? And as a political scientist, I'm not using the word democracy in a term of art. I mean, literally. Trump is acting unilaterally on many issues, many, many issues. Congress has ceded their own power to Trump. Why? Why would you do that? Why would you go through all of that to get elected, to cede power to one person? That's wow. I mean, I understand being unified and coming together as a caucus and all of those things that we want Democrats to do, to be unified, to come together as a caucus, to stand up for policies that are beneficial for the American public. But why would you be complicit in destroying democracy? What's in it for you? Why would you do that? Why would you support a regime that has been trying to chip away at the trustworthiness in our election system. When you are elected to office, why would you do that? Why would you see power that way? There are a few possibilities. I know on the election campaign, there were a lot of lies told. People like me, we were trying to tell y'all these are lies. If you watch Roland Martin Unfiltered, if you, whatever, wherever you heard people talking about the dangers of this administration, and I was definitely one of them, not from some Trump derangement syndrome or some level of emotionality, from my professional uh, experience. Trump 2.0 was always meant to be the cruelest, the most dangerous, to appoint loyalists over qualified people. You have the Secretary of Defense calling for women to no longer have the right to vote. And the next step will be for women to no longer work. Watch what I'm telling y'all. If y'all didn't believe me then, believe me now. It's going to get more cruel because they feel empowered now. They've done so much in under a year. I mean, the courts have tried to push back on a lot of these policies, and in many ways, that's also built into the equation. A good friend of mine told me that a an insider told them that even if they only get about 20-25% of Project 2025 enacted or passed, or you know, they're fine with that. They understand that they are going to lose a lot of court battles that's built into the pie. But the things that they really care about, the complete and utter destruction of the federal workspace, where the Black middle class has been for decades um, been built and supported, pretty much that system has been destroyed. And not just because of the sledgehammer they took to the federal government, but people's trust in the system is eroded. And see, that's also part of it too. You want to erode people's trust. That's part of the authoritarian playbook. You want to erode trust, right? So young folks who are graduating or who had lofty ambitions coming to DC and working at Department of State or USAID, who wanted to give back to the world and contribute, they're pivoting. Where are all these people going to find work that are pushed out of the workforce? Where are they going to go? On Roland Martin last week, I talked about the tariffs and I talked about the hike with steel and aluminum specifically, and how it's gutting the auto industry, and how I read this quote from Carr. I forget where I pulled the quote from, but by the end of this year, by the end of 2025, the American public is going to be saddled with an increase of 4 to 8% when it comes to buying a car. And I'm talking about affordable cars like Kias, Volkswagens. Now, see, here's what the Trump administration think will happen. They think if they bully not uh, companies that aren't American into paying tariffs, then that will force Americans to buy American. But I have a question. With what money? Between the tariffs, inflation, pushing people out of jobs, with what money? Because the truth is, Black folks are the largest consumers in this country. In this country. So, who's going to be buying all of this higher priced made by Americans? I love the idea of buy American. Yeah. But what we were told during NAFTA was that prices were going to come down for goods, which is why so many Americans lost their jobs to overseas jobs in the first place in the 90s. Because we were told that globalization and NAFTA and all these things were going to bring down the cost of goods, right? That we were going to have more access to the global economy. But you know what wound up happening? While the American public, while we always take the brunt of bad policymaking, companies and corporations got greedier and greedier, and they continued to build their factories overseas because labor was cheaper, completely dismantling manufacturing in the United States. Now, Trump thinks that Americans are going to get in those fields and pick those vegetables and go back to those factories. Girl, who doing that? Because y'all told us going to school and getting education is the way to go. So that's what people like me did and got myself into debt, right? So who's going to be buying American? Magaland? With what money? Because many folks in Magaland, get ready for this, many of them are, are, are on some form of subsidy from the government. That's just a fact. When you look at a lot of these southern states, that's just a fact. Like Tennessee, where Pete Hegseth is from, like where I'm from in Louisiana. Y'all, who is going to have the money to buy American with the tariffs, with inflation, pushing people out of all different sectors of the work economy? Like I said when I started this video, hey Melinda girl, the person who scares me the most, it's not the kids in Navy Yard trying to find something to do during the summer. It's not the Howard kids returning that's going to be out partying on U Street. It's the occupant of the White House is a threat, in my personal opinion, to all Americans, but especially Americans that look like me. While you all are out there talking to people today about what's happening in DC, there's one stat. There's one stat that you need to be repeating over and over and over. Violent crime in DC is down by 26%, a historic 30-year low. That rambling press conference that them people's president gave earlier today, it's a lie. And I'm not saying that as a Democrat. I am saying that as a person who can read. Like, this isn't a partisan statement here. This is just simply a fact. This is a statistical fact. His premise for federal officers and agents to be here, y'all, is a lie. It's not even a fallacy. It is a lie. That's what you push back on all day today. You call that lie out. So then he pivots to unhoused folk. I live in DC. Coming from Los Angeles, I lived in Hollywood for over 20 years. And when I say Hollywood, I don't mean the metaphorical Hollywood. I mean like the city. um, I did see unhoused folk during winter, but I was also very shocked that it was a lot less than what I was anticipating from the things that I heard, you know? And this summer, I got to tell you, haven't seen many homeless people out. I'm just keeping it a buck. Again, this isn't partisan. This is what I've seen with my own eyes and what I can read. We cannot let these lies condition us like in MAGA land. They are trained to ignore what they see with their own eyes, hear with their own ears. We cannot let that kind of conditioning be normalized. And I've been talking for a little bit, but I kind of want to wrap it up here. And I would love for, if you all have questions, please feel free to ask me questions. Um, Normalization of Trump's unilateral authoritarian takeover of the United States. We cannot let that normalization settle. We cannot let that resonate within the American psyche that there's nothing that we can do. That's not true. There's nothing more. An authoritarian hates nothing more than dissent, mockery. These are tools that everyday Americans have available to them. You push back on the lies. You dissent through informing the public. And there are some people who are really good at the mockery and the parody. I think that's also part of it. South Park got that on lock. South Park got that on lock. I think SNL needs to go study up underneath the writers of South Park sometimes. But the tools that we have available to us, we have to lean into them like we never leaned into anything before. You know, as a Black American, I've always heard my entire life that since our existence here in North America, especially here in the United States, that we've always had the unfair job of fighting for the soul of this country. It's beyond that. It's beyond fighting for the soul of this country. We are fighting for freedom. We are fighting for the imperfect Constitution. We are fighting for free and fair elections. We are fighting for women's right to choose. We are fighting for better wages so people can live the American dream. That's a fallacy. But where people can earn livable wages, where you don't have to work 3 jobs plus live with roommates. Where education, which is being systemically dismantled in this country because it works in Trump's and MAGA's interest to have an uneducated populace because you're malleable. You will believe things easier. Conspiracy theories make sense in your brain. We are fighting for that promise of America that's never quite happened. But I'm not at the stage to give up on it. And for the few folks that are listening to this right now, I'm guessing you aren't ready to give up on it either. But be careful. I do want to say that. Do whatever makes you feel safe. Don't do things to impress other people. Don't do things for social media. But whatever you are doing in your corner of the world, focus on that. Focus on the people in your world. Focus on whatever it is that you are good at. If it's social media messaging, do that. If it's holding, small gatherings, and informing people, do that. If it's outside protesting, do that. If it's writing and publishing, do that. If it's content creation, do that. You do not have to do what everybody else is doing because these are unsafe times. Make no mistake about it. These are very unsafe times. And unfortunately, We are living in unsafe times because of the occupant of the White House. He's the threat. And that is a very scary realization. I'll stop here and see if there are any questions or any comments. Please drop them. Oh, I can't wait to get my hair done. Y'all have no idea. Woo! All this hair. Lord. Whew. It'll definitely be challenged in the courts. Absolutely. I'm sure there are lawyers right now in somebody's lower court right now challenging it. Absolutely. Um, just like in LA, California. Absolutely, it will be challenged. And, like I mentioned earlier, there really is no justification for this. There isn't a national security sense of urgency. There is no massive violence out in the streets. There just isn't. But the concern is, will Trump listen? That whole situation about the Supreme Court giving Trump immunity is still kind of. Oh, what's the update? What's the update, Carrie? I'm not aware of it. I've been answering texts all morning from my loved ones asking if I'm okay, which I greatly appreciate. There's a hearing. Melinda, do you know anything about this? About an update in the LA? Is this about the National Guard being deployed, or is this about immigration? The case you're talking about, Carrie. Hmm. This is an interesting thread to pull on. So, mind you, immigration has been used as an excuse in uh, LA. Crime, mm, the Batamas Act. I don't know. I'm not familiar with that. Crime is being used as an excuse in DC. And from what I understand, he's trying to, New York is next. Um, for anyone who still does not believe that all of this is intentional against Black and Brown people, y'all need to wake up. Y'all really need to wake up. This man has been trying to destroy DC. I think on the rankings of where the most Black millionaires live, DC is like number 3. And a lot of that is from working within the federal government. You leave government, you go and consult, you do all sorts of things. You leave the military, you go and consult, that man cannot stand melanated people. Even though he may shuck and jive, with entertainers, that's different. It's always been different. You can make room for entertainers and, celebrities, athletes. That's different. What can a DC mayor do in a situation? Like I was talking about earlier, DC is vulnerable because we don't have electeds, and all the electeds are gone. You know, I was asking everyone earlier, do we think that what Speaker Johnson did by releasing Congress for a month, was that a whim or was that strategy? I don't think it's a coincidence that this is happening while electeds are gone. I honestly, Carrie, do not know. And Jamal, I know that there are people outside protesting right now. I do know that. And God bless them. I hope they are safe. Um, because there are also federal agents and officers outside too. Um, the only recourse I do believe is a legal challenge to Trump's national security reason that he gave. And I'm blanking on the actual policy that he deployed. It just left my brain. Outside of legal action, oh, he's absolutely trying to intimidate Black women leaders. Yes. 92%, we have a target on our head. As big as this thing is on my head, because I need my hair done, that's how big the target is. I there's this job that I would be really, really good at. And a colleague of mine is I would be right under them. And I asked him very plainly, I was like, in this environment, could you realistically have a Black woman as a deputy? I was like, because I all but have 92% tattooed on my forehead. You know what I mean? Like, and the new coded word now is partisan, right? So that's the new code word for Black or racism. It's partisan, just FYI. But, I know that there will be legal challenges. People are protesting in the streets. I saw that Hakeem Jeffries had tweeted something, threaded something, whatever. Um, I don't know what electeds have planned. But like I said, because DC does not have representation, DC is vulnerable in that regard. And that, you know, Mayor Bowser is doing all that she possibly can. I'm pretty sure they saw this coming. If I saw it coming, I know her folks saw it coming because he had been, one thing about Trump, in as much as he lies, but when he floats an idea out there, when he starts off with, I might do this, I'm thinking about doing that, oh, he's going to do it. So you have to be able to speak Trump to decipher his lies and then also to know when he's about to do the thing. Like when he says, I might do the same thing in New York, he's going to try to do the same thing in New York. There's no might to it. So besides legal challenges, I actually don't know what she can do. There's no governor like a Gavin Newsom saying that he did not give the National Guard the authority to be in LA, so they had to go. So this is why DC was perfect for him to do this, because we're vulnerable. We don't have representation. But there is supposed to be a Congress. You can't just unilaterally federalize DC. Yes, he's testing the waters. Absolutely. And also trying to intimidate Black women leaders. Hmm. He can't stand us. Can't stand us. Can't stand us. We're outspoken. We're opinionated. We're going to question you. We're going to call you out and stand 10 toes down. That's what a lot of people hate about Black women in leadership roles. We have the ideas, we have the know-how, we are more than capable, but we don't just shut up and sit down. You can be in the room, darling, but just be pretty and don't open your pretty little mouth. Good luck with that. Yeah, Congress is just, um, I think about this all the time, y'all. Like, I think about history and I think about how history's going to look back on, what is this, 119th Congress, and how this happened on their watch. The potential fall of America and American democracy on their watch. That's going to be their legacy. And we have to keep reminding them of that. Because like I said earlier, once we can figure out why so many electeds are willing to cede their power to Donald Trump, is the $1 million question, y'all. Why you go through all of that to get elected? To cede power to one man who could care less about you, who uses you up and throws you away? Because everyone around him always suffers the consequences. He doesn't. He is the black hole. He sucks you in and devours you. Does he have something on all these people? I mean, in this environment, in this climate that we're living in, I don't even think that matters anymore. Don't nobody care who you sleeping with. I mean, look at the president of the United States. Look at his resume. He's sitting on 34 felonies. How that work? This meeting with Putin violating international law because Putin is wanted. Um, just a complete disregard for rule of law, domestically and abroad. Maybe Trump can just appoint them and they don't need to worry about being elected. This is crazy. Or, just like what I don't want is for our elections to be a mockery, like in places like Russia. There are elections, right? No. Yep. Going to Alaska. Hey, Lisa Murkowski. How you feel about Putin coming to your spot, girl? Mm. I did a podcast interview on Friday, and the host said, how do I seem to always turn up optimistic? Y'all, that's complicated. I am hopeful that we can come through this. Will we have some bumps and bruises? Yes. The American public has gotten so used to comfort, and there's nothing wrong with that because the American dream told us it's okay to be comfortable. I don't know how much discomfort the American public can continue to deal with before they get up. I mean, really get up. I mean, the No Kings March, that was powerful, but that was a while ago. And there are marches in Los Angeles, there are marches all the time. There are protests all the time. But I mean, to really get up, and that's the scary thing that no one really wants to really grapple with. Because the one thing that I know as a political scientist, unfortunately, there is only one way for these things to go. And it's something that I don't even really want to articulate because I'm not advocating for it. I will never advocate for violence. That is not my ministry. But I am worried because we've gotten so used to comfort, like the universities, the law firms. That's why they complied. They don't have the fight in them. What is that going to look like? I don't know, y'all. And that's the part that scares me. I guess I'll say, in as much as this coup has looked different, because as far as we legally know, it was a legal election and Donald Trump was elected. And he's finding all these loopholes in the law to do the things that he's doing. This is a very different type of coup. It wasn't a military coup. It wasn't a violent coup. Um, he tested January 6th. Nothing happened to him. So they continue to plan a Project 2025. Now, I bring that up to say, is it possible to have a nonviolent resolution to this? That's what I'm hoping for. But the gloves have to come off, like with the Texas Democrats, because they are trying in broad daylight to already steal 2026 because they know it's going to be a blue bloodbath. All the special elections, the data that we have so far, it's telling us that, and they see it too. I'm not talking about MAGA folks leaving MAGA land. I'm not talking about them. Trump is always going to have a good 30%, rocking with him. The lowest I can ever see it getting is like 28, 26%, and that's generous. Um, but his policies are wildly unpopular. But again, that's baked into the pie too, because like Trump told everybody on the campaign trail, oh, don't worry about it. This will be the last time you'll ever have to vote. I keep bringing that up, y'all, because that man is serious. Steve Bannon has been working, plotting in the background for years to extend presidential term limits. And remember, Trump just high-fived the president of El Salvador, who just expanded term limits. She also expanded term limits a few years ago in China. He's dying in office, just like the president of El Salvador. That's the play here. That's what I need Democrats out there talking about and telling us how they are going to prevent that from happening. Yes, the Democrats have to gain the House and the Senate, 1,000%. But we have to hold the line for that to even happen. In as much as 2026 will be here in 5 minutes, it's still a long way to go for them to do a whole lot of trickery. Because what happens if they do arrest the Texas Democrats? What precedent does that set? We're in very dangerous territory, y'all. We're in new territory. And see, Trump is emboldened. He doesn't care. If they arrest the Texas Democrats, what's going to happen? They're going to have to go through a long court process. Who's going to occupy their seats? I am looking for a plan from Democratic leadership. What is the plan? And I know that their power is limited. I'm not one of those folks out here that have very unrealistic ideas about what electeds can and can't do. No, I know that their power is very limited. I am simply asking for a plan. How are we safely going to get to 26? Some people are predicting a kinetic civil war before 26. That they have come so far with their agenda that they will do anything to protect it. And I don't disagree with that, y'all, because they know the moment Dems get back in office, that's the end of Trump. They're going after Elon Musk. Elon Musk wasted so much money with Doge, completely dismantled the federal government. Not only did he walk away with another contract, but he walked away hands scot-free. And let's not forget the people who are actually dying around the world, namely in Africa, because we just cut foreign aid without a plan. The death toll for this administration is adding up, y'all, domestic and abroad. Remember the planes that crashed in the beginning because they were just firing people? The floods in Texas? The body count's adding up, y'all. What is the plan? I'm not a savior. I'm not one that believes in a single savior. I never have, outside of the savior. I don't get mixed up in idolatry and all of that. I read my Bible multiple times. Um, and I know that a lot of Dems are saying, who's the leader? Who's going to emerge as the leader? Who's the leader? Who's the leader? For my California folks, what do y'all say about Gavin Newsom? Well, I mean, part of their strategy was for all the conservative folks bought up all media. I mean, that's a wrap. That's why new media, this sort of way of communicating with people, that's why all of this is important, right? That's why we have to use the tools available to us. I will keep saying that. We must use the tools available to us. We must use the tools available to us. We can message through social media. I'm no longer concerned. As much as I used to be on MSNBC, as much as MSNBC was nerd mecca, it's not that anymore. I'm no longer concerned about the MSNBCs and CNNs of the world. They're compromised. New York Times, Washington Post, these once lions and stalwarts of truth. Mm-mm. Nope. State propaganda at this point. They are trying to normalize. I saw an article, I think, in the Wall Street Journal saying how Republican women are having it all. Supporting an administration who wants to take their voting power away, who took away their right to choose, and the next step will be for them to no longer be in the workforce. Get out of here. Newsom's messaging seems to be getting through. It definitely does get through. I would like to hear a plan. Um, I do know that I know that there are folks in the transgender community who are nervous about Gavin's national elevation because I think of comments that he made on on a conservative podcast. Do I think we can put this back together? There is no back. There is no going back. We have to go forward. We don't know what's going to be left. The amount of destruction that Trump has already caused. We don't know what's going to be left. And that's what we need to focus on. There's no going back. I don't think there's no putting back together USAID. There's going to be some other form of foreign assistance. I don't know what that's going to look like. Maybe that gets privatized. I don't know. Um, but there's no going back. A whole new constitution, maybe some amendments. I don't know about a new constitution. I know that probably, the conservatives would love to have a new constitution where their version of Christianity was, was the guiding philosophy. We got to get to 26. Regarding redistricting, I mean, listen, that is a nuclear option. But at the same time, again, we must use what's available to us in our toolkit. If that is what is available to them, use it. What the fallout will be from that, here's the precarious thing about that. Dems have always been so worried about that. It actually has contributed to our ineffectiveness now, which isn't a bad thing to strategize and to worry about 5 years, 10 years. That's not a bad thing. As a strategist, I think that's actually smart. But in a moment where we need to have razors in our fists, we need to have razors in our fists. This is beyond fighting for the soul of our country. This is fighting for the country itself. They want Black and brown people back on a plantation picking vegetables and fruit, back in the factories. They want women at home pumping out babies. And for only white men to have status. There'll be a few brown people around, shucking and jiving. They'll let them, be around. But this is what we're fighting against. And it doesn't help when Black and brown people are complicit. But historically, those folks have always been around. There's always been Black and brown folks to help the oppressor oppress because they feel like they will benefit somehow, that they will be um, saved from the brutality because they know it's brutal. That's the thing. That's why they do it, for protection and safety. Good luck with that. What was the Black cabinet member that died from COVID? Listening to Trump and them? What was his name? They don't even talk about that man anymore. Uh, was he in charge of HUD? What was his name? People don't even talk about that man. Herman. What was his name? Y'all help me out. Herman Cain, was that his name? They don't even talk about that man. It's like he never existed. Yep, Cain. Mm-hmm. Yep, Herman Cain. Mm-hmm. It's like that man never existed. We have to use the tools available in our toolkit. This is not the legacy I want to leave behind for the ones coming behind us. Exactly. Everybody forgot about him. That man didn't take the vaccine. That man died. And let's not even talk about what happened at the CDC, where I have friends and colleagues who work in that building who are scared to go to work because of the lies, and disinformation from this administration. These people are dangerous, y'all. These people are so dangerous and reckless, it's not even funny. So I want to say, as I wrap this up, for those of you who follow me on Threads, you might have seen my post a few days ago that my course at Georgetown was canceled. My international relations and race course was canceled. Um, so I want to try something as I am fully embracing this new media space, fully embracing thinking outside the box, being innovative. I want to teach a 6-week course here on Substack where there's no homework there's no homework. I will suggest some books and some readings, and I'll put a syllabus together, invite some folks to talk. I want to create a class, International Relations and Race, and then the consequences and fallout of U.S. foreign assistance, where I have colleagues and friends who worked at AID, who come and guest lecture and stuff like that. Would y'all be interested in something like that? I would have to charge a little bit because, Georgetown canceled my class. And I no longer work at Department of State. So, um, yeah, so I'm thinking about teaching that course. And then what you get Nightcap, my show through the Persist Network. You get Security Brief. Thank you, Carrie. You get all my other media, Roland Martin and everything else, long form articles. So I am definitely thinking outside the box. We no longer live in traditional times. And so I'm trying to meet that moment in a more intimate and personal way. And then I would also have office hours and, all those things built into the course. Thank you. We are living in different times and we have to think differently. And I'll never stop being an educator. I'll never stop informing people. I've known for a very long time that this is my ministry, educating people through whatever format. I've been talking to y'all for a long time, and I'm so grateful that y'all all stayed and listened. I will do a formal security brief on Thursday. I'm going to talk about, putting nuclear reactors on the moon. Y'all be safe out there. Do your part. Do not feel pressured by other people to have to perform. Do you. But whatever you do something. Use the tools available in your toolkit. And the only way we're going to get through this is together. And I hope you all have communities that are holding you down in these very challenging times. But we can get through this together. And remember, tell everybody and their mama, crime is a historical 30-year low in Washington, D.C. Violent crime is down by, what's that magic number? 26 percent. 26%. Persist against the lie. Persist against the lie. All right, y'all, I'm out. I got to get back to writing. I adore all of you, and thank you so much for listening to me. One thing that I love about Substack is that it's going to automatically put this in clips, and so I'm going to post it throughout the week. All right, y'all, take care. All right.